Hello, and thank you all for joining our webinar for Job Seekers with Disabilities today. Today's presentation is by Carolyn Jeppsen, who is the CEO, President, and co-founder of BroadFutures. BroadFutures is a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit that provides individualized and holistic assessment, training, mentoring placement, and supervision in paid internships for young adults between the ages of 18 and 26 with learning disabilities. So first, just a quick run-through of some of the logistics. So during the presentation, attendees are set to mute, but there is a chat box to the right of your screen. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please just type them in at any time, and I'll pose your questions to Carolyn at the end of the presentation. As with all of our webinars, we offer a live captioning service, which you can access using the link below, which is also posted in the chat box. We'll be emailing all registrants a copy of this presentation and any handouts and any resources mentioned as well. When you exit the webinar, a couple of feedback questions will appear in your browser. So we'd really love to hear your thoughts on the presentation, and if there's any topics you find useful to feature in future webinars, please do let us know. Firstly, a big thank you to our Getting Hired employer partner, United Health Group, who support, not United Health Group, UCLA Health. So they've made this webinar possible, and UCLA Health was ranked among the top 5 American hospitals by the U.S. News and World Report. They're also rated the best hospital in the Western U.S. for the 25th consecutive year and the #1 hospital in the LA metropolitan area. You can find a wide range of healthcare positions on Getting Hired right now. So I'd like to introduce you to our speaker today, Carolyn Jeppsen. Carolyn is passionate when it comes to developing solutions for individuals with disabilities. As such, she's devoted 10 years serving on boards that support individuals with disabilities in the Washington, D.C. area. This includes Kingsbury Center, which is an educational institution serving children and adults with learning disabilities, and also the River School, which is an educational institution with a model inclusion program for children with hearing loss. So, without further ado, I will pass it on to you, Carolyn.
Good morning, everyone. We do not have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to get through this quickly and then leave you guys with a little bit of time to ask any questions if you would like to. I'm very much into quotes, but I picked these two because I think they frame what we're going to be talking about this morning. The first one is that every worthwhile accomplishment, big or little, has its stages of drudgery and triumph, a beginning, a struggle, and a victory, by Gandhi. And that is going to relate to what we're going to be talking a little bit about, that every job, especially when you're first starting out in the workforce, has times that are incredibly exciting and rewarding, and then there are times that feel like drudgery. And the bottom line is at the end, we want you to come out of it feeling victorious. But in order to do so, you definitely are going to have to bear through the days that may not feel as exciting as others. And then this last quote, I personally feel as an employer, but it's definitely the case when you speak to employers about what they're looking for in young workers. The 3 most important attributes in getting or keeping a job are attitude, attitude, attitude. And those, I want you to be thinking about those as we go through this because it frames what I'm going to be talking about. All right, 10 top reasons to intern, or what is often called work-based learning. And you may know some of these, but some of them are not as obvious. Obviously, the most important reason is to gain professional experience and transferable skills. If if interning in a place where you have a supervisor who understands the value of internship, and if you have the correct attitude, that is absolutely what will happen. Another area is exploring areas of potential career interest. This can mean that you have a work-based learning opportunity that is in an area you think you're interested in, and it solidifies that interest, but it also could be the opposite. You could, and we have had interns who enter the internship thinking they're interested in A, and they come out of it realizing they're actually interested in B. It's also important, especially for young people who may have various social or sensory sensitivities, realizing what kind of environments you like to work in. Interning in a place that has a team building atmosphere versus a place that maybe you're working more by yourself, loud, quiet. All those things are really important as you're starting out, and internships provide those opportunities. They definitely increase your opportunities for full-time employment, both at the place you're interning, but also employers want to see that work experience on your resume. And if you have several internships on your resume, it's going to help you get full-time employment later. Helps you make contacts. This is really important, and the whole idea of networking, it's really the most efficient way people get jobs and keep jobs. And even if you're not going to work at your internship site, the contacts you make there are absolutely transferable. And I would highly recommend both nurturing those and while you're in the internship and then keeping them afterwards. Experiment with your acquired skill set. This relates to the number 3. You may have an acquired skill set already, you may not, but if you do, and let's say you were interested in engineering and that's a very specific skill set, it allows you to actually experiment what you've learned in school and put it to test. The number 7 has been researched that if while you're in school, work experience can enhance your efficiency and effectiveness. So it's working, you have to be much more organized than when you are in school in a way because you're multitasking in a different capacity. And we found that when people work and then go back to school, they're actually more efficient with their homework and their projects at school. Creating opportunities to work as part of a team as opposed to when you're a student, and unless you were on school-based projects, you may not have had an opportunity to work as part of a team. That's an incredibly important skill to being successful, helping with time management, and obviously making your resume stronger. Why do employers hire interns with disabilities? They're not just doing it because it's the right thing to do, although that is obviously true, but it's because diversity, these are my graphics here, plus inclusion creates innovation. If you do or do not know that texting on the cell phone came from the need to communicate with deaf people, that's a kind of a classic example. Another classic example that people see all the time are the divots that are in sidewalks that are used for all kinds of purposes, strollers and shopping carts, but they're obviously were first experimented with and put into use for wheelchair users. It goes much beyond this. Different thinkers absolutely create an innovative environment. They inspire those around them to be more innovative, and this is why the main reason employers are interested in having individuals with disabilities in their workforce. How to obtain and prepare for an internship. So I personally think the most effective way to do it, instead of responding to ads, but you should do that as well, is to network. Employers, you can be too aggressive in certain ways, but employers like you to reach out. They would prefer to hire someone that is being referred to them by someone else. From day one, make sure that you're communicating effectively. Every communication, whether it's email or phone, has got to be clear, concise, and professional. You cannot have typos or grammatical errors. If this is a concern of yours, have someone review it before you send it. That includes resumes. I get resumes that have typos on them, and it's not as if I'm not going to hire someone because of that, but it does make you think twice about it. Be responsive. So I generally have a rule that if an employer reaches out to you and has requested something, additional information, respond to it within 24 hours. That does not mean you have to get them the information. What it means is that you have to be responsive. And let's say there was an additional essay or they wanted an official transcript as opposed to an unofficial transcript. Just indicate I'm in receipt of your email. Thank you for your interest. I will have the information to you by X date. Thank you notes, thank you notes, thank you notes. Some people feel it has to be handwritten, and a lot of managers like getting the handwritten note. I personally think email is completely acceptable and appropriate, and it's really important to do because it will differentiate you from the people that do not do that. When you are applying for something, be thorough. Make sure you've read all the application materials and completed the application. Employers often get applications that are not complete because the applicant has not properly read the instructions. And why is that troublesome? It becomes worrisome if the young person is unable to complete the application process, that they're not going to be successful at the work. That said, you know that you absolutely can ask for assistance always in completing an application. And if someone doesn't give you assistance, that is a problem. They should be, legally providing the assistance. So if you're having problems completing the application, you need to ask for assistance for that. And as I said before, no typos, no typos, no typos. The last one seems obvious, but it's not always the case. I had a call this morning where I indicated to the applicant that I wanted them to look at our website, and they got on the phone and had not. So it's just important that you know where you are applying. If possible, also who you are speaking with, if you can research them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So first impressions, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. First impressions are incredibly important, and you need to kind of put time into this. So why are first impressions important? Because trust is built on first impressions. So as you can see, and I don't know how we're transmitting this for people if there's a visual impairment, but in any event, we have on the left, we have the same person, and on the left, the person is obviously, as you can see, dressed in a doctor's outfit, and on the right, the person is not with a cut-off T-shirt with tattoos. This is the same person. If you were going in to have open heart surgery, which person would you want performing surgery on you? On the one hand, we shouldn't judge people by appearances, but it's absolutely true that for the most case, people would want the person on the right who has the tattoos not performing the surgery, although I have had people answer the question in the opposite, actually. The next slide, which shows the same point that I'm trying to make. You have a person in a suit and you have a person with a cut-off T-shirt and tattoos. Who would make a better first impression in an interview? First impressions begin even before the interview. So this is very, very true, and a lot of people forget about this. So even when you're in the waiting room, be careful of the impression that you're giving. Please be courteous to the receptionist or the person you're meeting. I used to be a lawyer by training, and I always, when I was hiring paralegals, asked the receptionist how the paralegal treated them and if they were polite. Everyone in that office is there to serve the mission of the organization and should be treated with respect, and same with your body language while you're waiting. Interview basics. I don't want to bore you with all this, and I assume you're getting copies of the slides, but essentially it comes to making sure that you're dressed professionally, that you're timely. If your interview is at 10 o'clock, come early at 9:45. You do not want to be late. As I said, be kind to the people who are running the front desk or whatever your first interface is. Body language is really important. eye contact, maintaining good posture, getting practice in these. You know, interviewing is really important if that's something that's hard for you. If you have opportunities to do mock interviews, that's great. If not, do it in a mirror or do it with a friend. Don't interrupt the interviewer. For people that have an issue with rambling on, that's fine when you're answering a question, but wait until a question is asked before answering, even if you know what the interviewer is going to ask you. Ideally, we want your answers to be concise and short, and you're not sharing things that are not asked of the question. Being honest is really universally important. So don't make anything up or exaggerate or puff what your answer is. It's much better to be sincere and honest, and that will, you know, go very far with respect to whoever is interviewing you. Make sure to bring your resume, and as I said before, send a thank you letter. The reason I created a separate slide on do your homework and be prepared is that I've actually been amazed at how many people on my self-interview and speaking with other employers who experience the same thing, that the people who are coming to interview have not, they don't know who they're interviewing with, they don't know what the company does and why they're looking for someone. It's too competitive a world out there to expect to compete on that level when you have people who are fellow applicants who have done their research and are able to express why they want to be there. Most people hiring are looking at that significantly. So understand what the company does. I mean, it is out there. If the company does not have a website, which would be highly unusual, there are other ways to get the information. You can ask them to mail you information if need be. Also understand what the position is that they're trying to fill, because it may be generally based position. You may have general experience. It may be very specific. You may have specific experience, but you really want to position yourself to be in the best light of what the position is that they're offering, and think about before you go in why you would be a good fit for that position. The other thing that people want to see is that you are being interactive and that you actually have questions of the organization. And so, you know, think of something specifically about the company and about the position you're applying for, or ask about workplace culture. I think that's huge, especially if you're asking for accommodations. You want to understand how open they are to that because you want them to be open to that. But even just, you know, is it a social environment? Is it a not social environment? People eat lunch together. It almost doesn't matter what it is as long as it's relevant to you and it's relevant to the interview itself. The last two, I think, are important as to how the company measures intern success and what makes a successful intern. That will help you figure out how you fit in the framework. It will also help you, if you have the internship, to know upfront how to be successful in it. You can Google questions that companies are asking nowadays. A lot of companies are asking some bizarre questions like, you know, if you were on an island, what kind of ice cream would you want to have if you were there stranded by yourself? But for sure, you're going to be asked the following questions that are on this sheet. You know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses or areas of needed support? What skills do you bring to the position? What's your experience? Why are you interested? So for me personally, that's a huge driver. What is the passion of this young person, and why do they want to be a part of the BroadFutures team? And that fits into the next question. Then, especially in the last few years, who you are as a person, what you're interested in outside of work, what you like to read, any of those things that get to who you are becoming a huge piece of the interview process. So you should just think about that so you're not caught off guard. You want those to be sincere answers. You don't want them to feel stilted. But I think if you think ahead of time, what is it that drives you, not just at the workplace, but outside of the workplace or outside of school, I think that really, really makes you a better candidate. Disclosure and request for accommodations. As you know, we could spend the whole webinar talking about that. So I just wanted to give you a quick slide on that, and happy to answer any follow-up questions after the webinar. And obviously, you know, there's tons of resources on the internet, but it's a personal decision whether to disclose or not. Some people have to disclose. It's obvious that there's a disability, and so you are disclosing. But if you have an invisible disability, it can be a personal decision whether to disclose or not. There are a lot of reasons to disclose even at the interview stage or even at the application stage. There's a lot of organizations who have disabilities to hire people with disabilities. It can enhance your application. It can move your resume to the top or close to the top. You also want to make sure that you have accommodations in place since day one. That's another reason to disclose early on. So we've had, not interns we place, but I've heard from interns at previous placements that they got their accommodations approved, but they weren't ready for, 2 weeks into the internship. Well, if you only have an 8-week internship, that is a problem. It also can provide context for your work product, pace, and hours. So, I had an intern myself who had attentional and learning disabilities, and if it had not been disclosed to me, it would have seemed that things were taking longer and that she was late and things like that. However, because I knew that, we were able to craft a different schedule, both timelines for completing projects, but also for getting to work on time and provide support so that she was incredibly successful because of that. My personal feeling on this is disclosure is an important thing to do. It can only help you. You want to work at a place that embraces your disability, but it's a personal decision for you guys. And so often what I hear back is, I don't need to disclose because I don't need an accommodation or I'm not comfortable doing so. If you don't think you need an accommodation, there isn't a reason to disclose. Sometimes people think they don't need an accommodation and actually they would be more successful with an accommodation, but those would be reasons to not disclose. Once you are hired, if you haven't disclosed at the application or interviewing part, once you're hired, disclosure and request for accommodation take a lot of different forms, and we don't have the time to go into that, and it's very different from organization to organization. Some of the large defense contractors especially have really formalized processes. Smaller organizations, generally when you speak to managers, it's a one-on-one conversation, and that's the most successful route. So this sheet I have here, how to become a super intern, is something that I shortened it a bit, but this is something we use in our own training, and it's kind of a cheat sheet for you guys to have once you get your internship. It gets back to the attitude, and these are all somewhat variations on that theme. You want to help. You want to be the intern who's not saying, I only want to work on certain projects, okay? So you want to be helpful. You don't want to complain. You want to be positive. You definitely always want to be on time. Employers say that's the #1 reason, actually, for termination is either absence or continually being late. So don't, shoot yourself in the foot with that. Asking questions to the right people. This is a big part of our program because we are dealing with a lot of young people who are not great self-advocates, and we're trying to get people to be great self-advocates. Most managers want you to ask questions. They would rather have it up-fronted with questions than have you deliver a product that was not at all what they were requesting. And it's rare that a supervisor is not going to want questions. It may be the case that you have a very busy supervisor, and that's when you ask, when can we set aside 15 minutes to go over this? And there's nothing wrong with that, and I would highly suggest that. Taboo topics, you never want to talk about religion, politics, sexual orientation, or other private topics at the workplace. Not appropriate. Swallow your pride is another area where interns have a tough time. You could be doing a very interesting research project, but then you're also going to have to do scanning and photocopying and answer the phone. That's kind of the job of being an intern, and you need to do it and be receptive to it, and you need to do a good job with it, because if you don't do a good job with it, you're not going to be trusted to do larger assignments. Networking is huge. There's some organizations that have a lot of interns, and it's easy to network amongst the interns themselves. There are some that only have 1 or 2 interns in a place, and then it's important that you also network with your supervisors and managers. It's a great way, especially within the disability community, it is a great way to get other internships, other work-based learning experiences, and ultimately full-time employment. And that's why it's really important to stay in touch with your supervisors. I worked with someone, 20 years ago, and then took 10 years out and then went back and worked with them again because I kept up that contact all that time. These are the don'ts to becoming a super intern. Do not drink while interning. So there will be happy hours, that is fine, but do not get drunk and then come to work hungover the next day. These, by the way, are all things that happen, so you want to avoid them. Don't gossip, just don't do it. Easier said than done, I know, but just don't engage in the conversation, especially if you're there on a temporary basis. It's never going to help you. Communication, people will send things in email that should never be put in email. Your email, even if you think it's private, even if it's to another intern, can be forwarded to the CEO. Don't put anything in writing that you wouldn't say to someone's face. Attire can vary from office to office, and so the best thing to do is to dress incredibly professionally in your interview in your first day, and then see how other people are dressing at work. Don't use your electronics at work as well, and you don't want to be chronically late or absent unless it has been approved ahead of time. How to obtain an internship. I'm sure this is what you all are very interested in. Your career services at your school, they really vary from school to school. I think the best way to get the most out of it is to establish a really good rapport with the people in that office, and they really do want to help. And working with your disability support services and the career offices, sometimes those two offices do not speak. I don't know why, but making sure that there's good communication between the two. A lot of people say career fairs aren't worth it, but I've actually hired people through career and internship fairs, so I would definitely go to them and definitely network. And I do, as I've said a few times, I do think the disability community is very open to networking and sort of passing interns amongst ourselves, and it's a great way to network. There are definitely coalitions of internship programs in DC. There's the GWIC, the Greater Washington Internship Coalition. You can Google it and get a whole list of, 30 different organizations. There's also companies that have internship programs for people with disabilities. These are just a few that I deal with on a regular basis, but we are probably going to provide you with a list of others. And you certainly, if you have specific interests, please reach out to myself or to Gabby, because we do have connections with specific organizations. But Ernst & Young, NIH, the Kennedy Center, Washington Internship Center, AAPD, Capital One, and ourselves do have definitely internship programs. I'm going to quickly get through what we do at BroadFutures and then open it up for some questions. So what is BroadFutures? We are an innovative, holistic workforce training program that then puts people into paid internships. And who do we serve? We serve people that think differently, and this is why I have the little tree that's growing sideways, because that tree is growing. It's just not growing in the same direction as others. We serve young adults between 18 and 26 with LD, ADHD, anxiety, and autism spectrum disorder. Young people transitioning from high school to college or other post-secondary. These are young people who are able to be independent and motivated. They do not need support at the work site, but we provide support outside of the work site. So we have upfronted training. We have a curriculum that is pretty innovative. We incorporate yoga and meditation. We deliver the content of it through drama and speech pathology, and then we have employers and peer mentors who are in the disability field come in and speak to our interns about, A, how to be successful, and B, why they're hiring young people with disabilities. And for the peer mentors, it's how they have been successful and use their disability to their advantage. This is our innovative approach, incorporating yoga and drama and exercise into how we deliver our curriculum. And here are some testimonials for you about what our interns have felt about our program, that it's helped them come out of their shell and be more outgoing, that we provide a support system, that it provides, as I've said before, all internships provide skills that you need to actually enter the professional workforce and to apply skills from school into a real-world situation. We deal a lot with executive functioning, so helping people become organized. And most importantly is the last one, which is helping young people to be confident, to feel good about themselves and their skills, and that they are an added benefit to any workplace. So I'm going to open this up to questions, and let me just ask Gabby, do I now need to turn you back so you are the moderator?
Yep, if you just pass back the presenter privileges to me, then we can go through any questions.
Okay, and I'm going to do right now. Bear with me, everyone.
So as you can see there, Carolyn's really kindly given her personal information, email and phone numbers, in case anyone has any further questions about internships or about BroadFutures or getting involved in internships or BroadFutures specifically. Feel free to reach out to her or myself. And you can also follow BroadFutures on Facebook and Twitter. They're on that as well. So it's a good way to keep up with, you know, the things that they're getting up to and any opportunities they might have coming up. Okay, so Carolyn has kindly passed back to me. And this is the time for any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Just one question I had, Carolyn. What sort of ages do you think are appropriate for people to start thinking about getting involved in internships?
So there's a lot of research. There's the Work Early, Work Often campaign right now, and there's a lot of research that actually starting at 14 is the time you should be looking into work-based learning. I do think that's true, but I think the kind of learning when you're in professional offices does not start at that age, so that type of learning would be more volunteer opportunities, and kind of the professional internships, I think, start as soon as your freshman year in college. It's really competitive out there now, and a lot of people, while they're in college, may have 5 or 6 different internships, so it's important that you have those on your resume by the time you graduate college.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, just one other question. I know you talked about companies like yourself that can help young people get into internships, and some companies also advertise internships that they run internally themselves. If somebody wants to get involved with a company, you know, they're really keen to get involved in whatever that company's doing, but the company isn't actively advertising for internships, would you still suggest it's worth trying, or would it be better for them to go through an organization or you know, a company that's already looking for interns? Is it still worth them you know, asking about internship opportunities themselves?
I think it depends on the company. I personally have a view that all companies should be doing internships and work-based learning because it's a great way for a company to recruit. But some companies are not set up for it because it requires a supervisor. So it does depend a little bit on the company. Obviously, it's easier for you all to go through a program and to go through a recruiter or go through companies that you know are hiring. But I certainly think if you have a passion and it's somewhere you want to work, it shows initiative if you say that you realize there's not an internship program, but you would like to do it. Especially if you're able to get school credit for it, because that means that they can pay you a stipend or not pay you, and it's cheaper for the company, and it's kind of a win-win situation. So that's another way to approach it. I wouldn't not do it. I wouldn't not suggest reaching out to the company, but often what I have found is there are some companies that don't have internship programs because they're simply not set up for it.
Okay. Well, if there are no other further questions, I just want to thank you so much again, Carolyn, for your time, and thank everyone who's been able to attend. I hope you found it useful. As I said, we'll be sending a copy of the presentation and also the transcript, and you'll be able to find the recorded version on our YouTube channel, and we'll include a link to that in the email as well, and also some extra resources about where you can get involved in other internships. Thank you again for attending, and don't forget to give us your feedback and your thoughts, and if there's anything else you'd like to know more information about in other webinars, feel free to put that in as well. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.